Welcome to the Gray Report. I'm your host, Spencer Gray. And if you're a multifamily investor, active, passive, just curious, maybe you're working in the multifamily industry, well, the Gray Report between the YouTube channel and our podcast is the one YouTube show and podcast that's really designed for you to help keep you up to date with all of the pertinent information that you need to make really good decisions. We also bring on interesting guests, get their insight into the multifamily industry. We've got a really special guest today, founder, principal, chief operating officer of Gray Capital. That company may sound familiar. That's where I work. I'm the president. She also happens to be my wife. It may all sound familiar. You may have seen Alex on the website, on the team bios. I know a lot of you have said, love to meet Alex. She's incredibly busy, not necessarily always client or investor facing, although I think that maybe that should change it at one point. Happy to have her on, ask her a lot of questions, talk about real estate, talk about balancing work and family and just, building a company, building a business, working on it together as a team and a partnership. Really excited. So let's just get into it. All right, bringing it back, we've got Alex Gray, again, Principal Chief Operating Officer here at Gray Capital. She's also kind of partner in life between being my wife and business partner, and couldn't do much without her. Alex, this has been a long time coming. I've been trying to get you on the Gray Report, give your side of the story. People hear it from me at least once a week. So they've got my opinion, but they probably want to hear what the other side of it is like. And you keep, all the trains running on time, everything moving, a lot of the stuff that I just can't figure out. You were able to figure out really well and get it done. You've got a lot of stuff on your plate. It's kind of changed as we've evolved as a business and a Gray Capital. And I'm excited again to share your background with people, a little bit about our story kind of through you. But, how's your day going?
Day's going good. Busy as always. Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, Alex and I have three daughters together. One's going to be 6. The other is 3, going on, 3.5. Then we've got a 2-month-old little girl. So 3 daughters. So it's a little busy at home. One of the reasons why you may not see Alex all the time, because she is dual rolling. I mean, full-time mom and kind of full-time chief operating officer as well, which is pretty insane. Not many people can kind of raising 1 kid is a full-time job. 3, you get a little bit of economies of scale, still a challenge, but then also working and running a business, that's not easy. Tell everybody just a little bit more about kind of before we're going to get into all the personal stuff and kind of the journey and your story, but just about right now, what you're focused on at Gray Capital as Chief Operating Officer.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, it's changed a lot to where we are today, but today I really get to focus on the things I love doing the most, which is marketing. I help from kind of making sure our brand and our image is out there the way we want it to be out there. On the construction rehab side, as we acquire new assets, looking at how to make them better. So just maybe getting into the background. So your background is is in design. So you went to Parsons, New York City. Parsons is part of the new school. You got a degree in design management. What is, not that I use my degree outside of doing this podcast, but so what is a design management? What is that? Yeah. So my major really focused on kind of being an entrepreneur and how to manage creative people. I kind of started off wanting to go into fashion and was always raised in a family where, my dad started his own business, my mom started her own business, and I knew that was something I wanted to do. So the more I thought about it, thought it was important to have a business background, and kind of made the shift then, while still being able to have a creative outlet. So what's the difference? Because now you're spending a lot more time managing, not necessarily strictly creatives, but more like contractors, subcontractors. Right.
What's the difference between managing, creatives, artists, designers, and managing painters and
Probably
contractors?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah. Both are not necessarily easy.
Yeah, I think both. I think you have to appreciate that they don't work on a schedule as much as maybe some of the more business-minded people do, and it kind of happens when it happens. So it's learning to
Patience is a
Patience is a
virtue.
virtue, exactly.
So you went to the new school, Parsons, degree in design management. Started working. You worked at a couple kind of fashion houses, different stores, working kind of in the fashion industry in New York City. And if my memory serves me right, because I was there also, you ended up not loving it, or you
Right.
got kind of jaded with the whole fashion industry. Kind of tell us about that.
Well, I think that in general, you and I have always had the idea that we wanted to be our own boss and kind of wanted to do things on our own. And I think working, I just got burnt out, and I wanted to build something on my own and create something on my own, but I wasn't convinced that fashion was where I wanted it to be. I think I got tired of culture and the lifestyle, and, being from Indiana, I knew I wanted to I wasn't convinced I wanted to be back there, but I still had kind of my Midwest roots and for the way I wanted to live and all of that. So I think I just had a reality check at the end of the day and realized it wasn't going to give me the lifestyle that I or we wanted.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it was, at least for me, even though I hadn't been there as long. But I think kind of just looking out into the future and trying to figure out what kind of life we wanted to live in. If New York City, which we both still like New York and
Sure.
we like being there, but trying to kind of think out down the road of, like, is that where
Right.
we wanted to be long term and our opportunities there versus elsewhere? And also thinking about at some point, having a family.
Right.
And people have families in New York City, millions every single day,
Right.
Or they're there. But for us, is that the exact environment and place we wanted to raise a family and
Right.
have kids with?
Right.
And again, it's probably experience. People who are from there, that's all they know, and it makes
Right.
sense. But for us,
Right.
we're like,
We know the Midwest. We know
all our kids
what
around
it's-
on a subway isn't exactly what we had.
Right.
Wasn't exactly the idea.
Right. And when you're working as hard as you were working to then not be able to enjoy the city and experience the city, it kind of takes away
that was the other reason we really couldn't afford to
to live there.
We could pay our rent, and that was
about it.
that was about it.
Yep.
So decided to move to New York City. Eventually, kind of took a long way back. Made it back to Indianapolis. Eventually,
Kind of pit stop in Florida.
Yeah, so live in Florida for a little bit. Try to figure that out. It didn't work there, but moved back to Indianapolis. And you're still kind of working kind of in the fashion industry, kind of working in some stores. You were also working, possibly starting like a swimwear line,
Right.
And so trying to do some of your own really just fashion design. Tell us about kind of that process, and you never brought that to market.
No.
But tell us about that experience and.
I think it was like my last effort to, I don't know if I was fully ready to admit I was done with fashion or having a line or having a kind of putting something creative out there into the world. And I don't think I was ready to admit I was for sure done. So I gave it one last hurrah. It was in the form of a swimwear line. And I think it was fun and exciting, but I think the business side of me just kind of was thinking about it more practically, and I wasn't convinced that was how I was going to build my career.
Yeah.
And so I kind of slowly parted with that, and I decided to pour my efforts into starting a business with you, and we really sat down and, we brainstormed all sorts of fun, crazy ideas, and
Yep.
And I was able to kind of stay creative by painting, and I had that as kind of a source of, keeping that in check. And
Yeah.
so
I think we were both at kind of the same spot because, I'd gone to music school. I was working as a recording engineer, doing a lot of like audiobook production and thinking about starting a larger business revolving around that. And I think we were both looking out and seeing what that would look like. And we're like, yeah, this one is we're not even sure if this is exactly what we want to be doing and really we're going to love doing. The exact thing that might make money that kind of overlapped with our skill set.
Yeah.
And then kind of thinking of it more as an entrepreneur and less of, well, I just want to pursue a passion of, okay, so how do you really build a business and it's going to be a sustainable business and it's going to allow us to achieve our goals. And I think both of us kind of came to that conclusion of, we may enjoy doing this, and this is something that we can always do, but we're not going to get to where we want to be in life and do the things that we want to do and live the life that we want and go the places we want to do if we go down this path. And so we both really kind of did a hard pivot So we started a business with our friend and now director of project construction here at Gray Capital, Matt Baxter, Sugar Creek Hops. So tell us about Sugar Creek Hops, because you were instrumental in really running
Sure.
that operation as well. What was it? What did we do? And
Yeah,
let's
well,
start there.
it morphed into something I don't think where we originally thought it would go, but we started off as wanting to farm hops. It wasn't something that was being done a whole lot in Indiana. And we kind of started planning our hop yard, doing the hop farming thing, and then realized that in order to make money more instantly, we needed to kind of jump into the brokerage side of things. So we became hop brokers more than hop farmers. I ended up, brokering hops all over the country, all over the world, and it kind of grew into being one of the largest hop brokerage farms or companies in the Midwest.
Well, because for a lot of people who may not know, may not be fully read into the process of hop farming. I guess hops in general, that's what goes in the beer. It kind of gives beer a lot of its flavor and bitterness. IPAs have a ton of hops. All beer has hops. And there was a hop shortage going on at the time. And, we basically started calling breweries and asking, were they having problems
Sourcing hops.
Yep. And if we could source them for them, would they buy from us? And they started saying yes.
Yes, right.
And to grow hops in most areas of the world, it takes 3 years to get a really commercially viable crop. And so if we knew, okay, even if we planted at full scale in year one, still we wouldn't
still
really
be
have
a
money
while. Yeah.
3 years. And then, but there was also the whole aspect of, well, hops have really never been grown commercially in Indiana since hardly commercially, early
Right.
1800s when it was more like pioneers and growing some hops for their own just personal consumption. So it was, kind of spearheading an industry in a market that's never occurred for.
Right.
And, but it's not like making widgets. So, you have to
Right.
have the climate and the climate, the soil, the conditions, the diseases, all these different factors. That was, a pretty big experiment and a lot of uncertainty on that venture, and still made sense. And it was getting us, some coverage, and people wanted to work with us because we had the hop farm going. But the brokerage side, we could start actually having a profitable business, or we could at least start generating revenue right away.
Right away.
And that ended up being the successful part of the business.
Right. And we were, logistically speaking, we had an advantage for so many. I mean, we kind of started this as the craft beer boom was happening.
Yeah.
And, everybody was starting their own little craft brewery. And we kind of sold them on the fact that, well, you can buy hops all the way out in California to be shipped to you, or you can get them through us and we're closer to you, and took on,
get them to you in the next day.
Yeah.
And
Right.
much cheaper too.
Right.
That was a big selling point.
Right.
So we decided to sell the hops business because the farming side was, I wouldn't call it a complete disaster, but not the experiment was not.
No, it wasn't a complete disaster.
The conclusion of the experiment of the growing hops in Indiana is that
Right.
just the agronomics, as they say, just weren't there. They were the most expensive pound of hops you could find.
There's a reason why Yakima is Yakima.
Yeah, exactly. Yakima, Washington. But the brokerage side was going well, so
Right.
we were able to really sell the brokerage side of the business. We also had a lot of unsold hops. We were able to do a big contract assignment and sell our contracts with brewers. And so I'm thinking back, and we decided, okay, we're going to be selling off a portion of the business, winding down the other side. Obviously, we're not done. Looking at the next thing, real estate had always been kind of floating around because
Right.
I had done some house flipping in the past that you were involved with in a little bit, and started reading a lot on buy and hold multifamily investing. And so
Right.
I remember that, and this was probably 2014, 2015, we both just started reading books on investing in multifamily, as well as starting to really just network with people who were doing it or somehow related to buying apartment buildings.
Right.
What are some of the highlights, I guess, of kind of that period, of kind of that exploratory phase, and then not just looking at real estate, but kind of some other ventures that we were thinking about? Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me about that time is I was pregnant with our first, and I think we were kind of at the point in our life where we were really figuring out, okay, We need to support a family, and how do we want that to look? And I think real estate is interesting in so many areas, but I think that it kind of fit within what we were looking for in our life at that time, and what we wanted for our future. I think we were excited to see what people were doing in Indiana. I think, we've always been interested in kind of being involved on and making, I think there was a creative element that drew us into and helping communities and areas and making, kind of building our city, being a part of that.
Yeah, seeing a change. Because,
yeah.
we saw things change. When we grew up here, went to high school here, went off to college, and we moved out to New York City, and then, a lot of change. And
right.
it was kind of exciting.
It was exciting.
Kind of post great financial crisis, seeing
right.
some of the growth and wanting to be a part of that.
Right.
And that's how I got, not initially started into flipping houses, but that's how I kind of got more passionate about it,
right.
is seeing some of this change in some of these neighborhoods and saying, I'd like to be
a part of it.
Be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But then buying large apartment buildings seemed to be a much more scalable business
right.
model than going through and just flipping a house here,
right.
flipping a house there.
Right.
And then I remember we had a meeting with Mike Dury from Over Merchants Capital. We brought him
yep.
a deal, and he said, "It's a great deal, guys. Love to lend you money on it, but I can't. You guys don't have any experience."
Right.
And so then we went, and he introduced us to another syndicator here local in Indianapolis. Basically said, I think you guys could bring something of value to him, and he's putting these deals together. If you partner with him, you can start gaining that experience.
Momentum and experience, yeah.
And prior to that, though, we were kind of banging our heads against the wall a little bit because we were trying to get that first deal. We couldn't get qualified for the financing that
mm-hmm.
we wanted to qualify for. We're trying to figure it all out, but we wanted to do it on our own, though. We really
right.
didn't want to bring in a lot of partners if we had to.
Right.
And that was, I would say, kind of a limiting factor for a while. While we were networking, people would say, "Hey, why don't you invest in my deal?" And we're not looking to invest in someone else's
right.
deal. We want to do our own deal.
Right. Yeah, we didn't like the idea of just being a passive investor. We really wanted to be active and kind of build our own portfolio of sorts.
But then I think at one point we were like, we're not making any progress.
Right.
I mean, we're making progress because we're networking, we're talking to people, but we wanted to see some more specific direct
right.
action, and we eventually got comfortable with the idea of partnering with
mm-hmm.
someone else.
Mm-hmm.
We came in as a co-GP, so part of like the general partnership group. So we weren't just a pure passive investor. To me, that kind of opened up the door of, hey, let's look at partnerships as a creative way to be able to really scale and to do a lot more
right.
than we would be able to do just on our own, even if we're giving a little bit up. For me, it was I understand all this in theory, but in practice, I've never done it before.
Right.
And I'd really like to have somebody in my corner that's done this
right.
a lot.
Right.
To reduce the amount of mistakes and risk and maximize the chance of success. And maybe you lose a couple percentage points, even investing as an LP, doing that. The amount of risk that you reduce, relative to that, at the time at least, I thought made a lot of sense.
Right, because I think at that time, that wasn't really being explained as an option for us. And I think you and I sat down, we were like, wait a minute, this is an opportunity where we can be an active participant while also learning and kind of taking advantage of that opportunity.
One of the big things for me was I was learning how to underwrite deals and do analysis. Right. And I remember started making assumptions of, on the expenses. I was assuming that we were going to spend more money than the mm-hmm. previous owner was mm-hmm. because I was like, they've done this longer than I have, and so right. maybe we're not going to be as efficient, and so we're going to be spending more money on expenses, which is the opposite of what you usually want to do. Because usually you're like, they're spending more money, I can run things more efficiently.
More efficient, right?
And again, the more I read, I was like, I'm looking at this the wrong way. I was like, if I don't believe that I can run this more efficiently, I either need to bring somebody on or partner someone that can make it run more efficiently. And the way that I'm thinking about it right now on my own is not the right way of doing it. And even to get a couple extra points of return to do it on my own.
Right.
Well, it might have been a wash partnering with somebody that was more experienced because they would be able to run things more efficiently. And so it'd kind of be net the same.
Right.
But just one had much lower perceived risk and one was more uncertain.
Right.
And so we really kind of kicked off Great Capital, with that partnership. We went and started investing as a limited partner in a couple deals as well, just to get experience with some other groups. Fast forward, though, this was, a couple years ago, probably about 3 years ago. I think, we sat down and going through some stuff and thinking about, we were at the point where we wanted to take kind of that next step, start doing our own projects, because we felt like we had gained that experience. We had the track record. I think we'd done over a dozen syndications just as a GP, and another maybe half dozen as a limited partner. What did you think? But when we first started, what was going through your head when we first started talking about, okay, Great Capital, instead of being more of kind of a holding company doing deals with other people, we're going to really build a business around this? Do you remember when we first started talking about that and kind of really expanding the team?
Yeah, absolutely. It was exciting. I think that has always been what you and I have wanted to do. And up until then, it was you and me. And I think we saw that there was this great potential. And I think it was exciting to feel like we were ready for those next steps. It had been a long time coming. But at the same time, nervous. There was a lot of components we hadn't done again on our own yet, but we were more than ready. So,
can you tell me about the plane plan?
Oh, yeah, the plane plan. Yeah. Well, Spencer and I have always had this joke, but not really, between the two of us, where we have a plane plan, and what do we have to do to get the plane? Get
a plane. Yeah. So to be able to either fly privately
or have
access to it, or have our own plane.
And that was like, well, is this gonna get us to the plane plan? On the track for the plane plan?
And what the plane represents, because it's like, commercials just usually fine, and flying private is just so expensive. But to me, it's like the symbol of kind of like ultimate freedom in a sense,
right?
Of like,
Absolutely.
Hey, we can go wherever we want. We don't have to make a connection. We don't have to screw with going through TSA. We can just hop on a plane, drive right up, hop on, get
do
off,
what we want,
and go.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just the ultimate sense of freedom. And and it was all right. If what we're doing right now, is that going to get us?
Yeah, it became a point of reference, like a way to see if we were on track.
Yeah, which it seems silly, but I think it has helped with the.
Has
helped with the direction. Okay, so we've started Great Capital. We've started hiring on. We brought Jay Reeder was the first kind of person we brought into the fold. Jay's been instrumental in helping us build the company, without a doubt.
Right before our city shut down too.
Yeah, so he came on. Yeah,
we had a unique time of building our business.
March 2020. We already had some deals, our own deals, kind of in the hopper, and I was like, I need to bring somebody on that had just more transaction experience, really somebody a little smarter than me. So we brought Jay Reeder in. He had been working at a couple multifamily companies. He was working at Glick. Huge operator, Trinitas, developed student housing. Just had a different look into the industry than we did, because we were more on the kind of the investment side. Putting the deals together, working with property managers, but not necessarily being in the thick of it, where Jay had been more in the thick of it, really deep in the industry. We brought the whole, this is what investors are looking for, this is how we put together an investment, this is what a good value add business plan looks like. So it was a really good kind of joining of forces. Brought Matt Bosnagel on to help us out with the communication, marketing, helping to build the website, launching the Gray Report newsletter, this podcast and everything. And then we've hired a lot of people on since then. Going from kind of doing it all, from basically doing some of the accounting to payroll to making design choices. You've kind of done a lot, ran the gamut. What are you, we talked about it a little bit earlier on, but what are your real focuses right now? And then what are you looking forward to working on in the future?
Now I feel like I've really been able to focus on the marketing side and working with Matt Baxter, who head of construction, and being involved on a property level, which I was excited to be more hands-on with.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I hadn't.
So let's talk about that. So we started a little bit in December 21, November, December. We started our own construction company, Gray Design Construction.
Right.
And you are leading that team with Matt Baxter. But maybe before that, before we kind of officially created a new company that was going to focus on the kind of the design and construction of assets that we're going to be investing in, we had a pretty heavy lift project. It was a condo deconversion on the north side of Indianapolis. Pinnacle on Meridian used to be condos, or a fractured condo community, 36 units, 24 of them were owned by one group that were running them as rentals but not managing them that well, then 12 others that were just still condos. We put the whole thing bought everybody out, assembled it all together, and the property just really hadn't been kept up the way that it should have been. Even though it was a beautiful asset, great location, really nice units, it needed a lot of work to bring it to the level that we thought that it deserved, and to kind of give it the credit that it was due.
Right.
You were instrumental throughout that process, from the selections, the overall design, coordinating. What are some of the things you learned through that process?
Oh, I learned a lot. I think one of the biggest things that I really started to understand or have a better grasp on was the difference between putting things in that will look great and be wonderful to look at, but what will actually bring a customer in, or somebody who's interested in living there, and what will actually affect renting or not renting there. So there was a lot of things I wanted to do that just didn't really make sense. They would look great and it would be a great design.
It's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
So what are some examples?
I think there was a lot of things with the property in and of itself that would have been great at the end of the day to do, from a landscaping and maintenance level. I think what we needed to decide is okay, what do we need to do now, and what are options for down the road? I think that there were some things in the lobby I would have probably chosen to do, but just didn't make sense at the end of the day.
And so how do you make those decisions of what's going to move the needle and what would be nice to have?
Yeah, I think it's a team decision. I think you, Jay, the three of us sat down and we just kind of looked at what will make sense. Obviously, the units that we needed to bring to market were top priority, and just kind of giving first a really good facelift. We added and updated the workout room, which is, we also talked to a lot of people. A lot of people used the workout room and they wanted a better workout room.
Yeah.
So that was top priority, and making it better and bigger, putting newer equipment, that was worth, the money. We did a really good job at picking and choosing and prioritizing. And then, same with the unit spaces. Just, the interesting thing about Pinnacle was because they were condos, each unit looked different. And some were very extravagant and some were more kind of just baseline. And how do you bridge that gap, and how do you make some nice units where they're kind of happy medium,
Yeah.
So it just kind of taught me about prioritizing and budgeting and just making smart decisions.
Well, and just to give everybody up to speed, so after we closed on the property, we had an exodus. A bunch of residents who had lived there basically broke their leases, but the leases were basically kind of worthless. There was no exit penalty or anything. They had a bad experience with the manager, and they saw it as an opportunity to kind of jump ship. So we went down from we thought we were going to acquire mid 80% occupancy. We acquired 45% occupancy.
Right.
And so the alarm bells went off. We got to get this thing leased up. What are we going to do that's going to assist in bringing people in? And if we only have so much construction resources, because getting people to do any work is just hard to get them on the schedule. We had units to lease, and so we said the first thing we put our energy on isn't going to be building out new units, which we had some to do, but we've got good units to lease. We need to make this more attractive, that someone's going to be there, walk in and say, okay, I can see myself living there. And so the lobby and that fitness center was huge. And it's a beautiful, beautiful lobby, and it went from looking kind of like a dated,
dark,
weird
dated,
hotel, with just kind of old furniture to now it's really clean and modern and just a whole different look when you walk through.
Right.
How do you balance all this? So obviously you're quite busy. And there's not enough time. We don't get to everything, obviously.
Right.
You have to prioritize, and I know the priority to you is the family and the girls. How do you try to find that balance?
Well, I'm still trying.
Yeah.
It's
Work in
kind of an
progress.
experiment. Yeah, it's a work in progress. And some days the girls are in the mood to let me be more hands-on at work, and some days
Yeah,
the girls
we got
aren't.
a couple of
so
them here right
yeah,
now.
we have 2 of them running around here right now. So it's I'm very fortunate that I have that flexibility to be on or more involved when my kids need it. And that's was important to me. I wanted the flexibility to be at home if I needed to be at home, and if I needed to just kind of detach and they needed my full self, then I could give that to them. But it was also very important to me to be involved and stay connected and build this. So it's it's a challenge, and some days are easier than others. But I think at the end of the day, I love what we do, and that kind of, I think, is at the crux of it.
Yeah. So what it makes me think about is just this idea and concept that we've talked a lot about and worked on is really kind of integrating kind of the business and the family and having it all kind of pull in the same direction. How do you look at ways to kind of to integrate, I guess, our family life with kind of the business that we're trying to build, all to kind of come together to create this whole, life that we're trying to, build for ourselves and our family?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have this great new space that we spent a lot of time moving into, and we feel like we have room to bring the kiddos here, and I can sit here on and work with them. But in general, I think that the idea is to just have that freedom that we talked about. And
like one example, I'm thinking of like going to Palm Beach, at a conference.
Right, at the conference.
And it's like, well, so I'm going to be somewhere for 2 days. Nice place at a nice hotel. Why not bring the whole family, stay for an extra, day or two?
Right.
And, I can write off the flight. I can write off the hotel room for a couple of days during the conference at least. And, why not have you guys, you and the girls hang out at the pool while I'm at the conference.
Absolutely.
I finish at the conference, go hang out with you guys. Back and forth, a lot better than going back up to hotel room and just being by myself.
Or even just places where we want to travel. Okay, is there a good market to look at? If we're there, is it an opportunity to check out a new market and way things are done?
But I will say you have to be pretty intentional about it, and it requires some planning, because if you could just kind of go off in separate directions, it takes an extra step to say, how do we make all this work together? And it's a little bit extra effort,
right?
But I think in the long run, without that, you end up just being on completely separate tracks, and you've got your career, your business over here, and then you've got your family over there,
right?
And you have to kind of start and stop and turn it off, and you still have to turn the business off at some point. But if you're all if we're all aligned with the same goals in the same direction, integrating the two allows us to move everybody kind of along
forward. It's definitely, it's intentional. We've built the business this way with this in mind, and it's a constant thing that we're thinking of, is how to kind of all stay on track together as a team and as a family.
What are some of the doors that after building great capital, investing in real estate, what is real estate, what are some of those doors that have opened up for us and our family, and how's our life different from when we started investing in real estate and kind of going all in on real estate than it was before?
I mean, I think we are every day working towards that goal of financial independence and being able to do what we want to do. I think travel. I think we're getting closer to our goal of building our team and seeing it all come to fruition. Before really taking the next steps with Great Capital, we dabbled in it, and now we're completely immersed. And
what are some of those, like, the deeper kind of why? Traveling is great, but what are some of the bigger kind of whys behind doing this, and what do you want? What's the point of it all?
Yeah, I think that you and I have always wanted to see an impact in the community, and that's what we've we've talked about making sure that we are a part of, like we said earlier, wanting to see our city grow and, other communities that we're involved in. I mean, we do this so that we can have a great experience with our family. So,
yeah. Definitely comes down to it, and we can at the end of the day. So, Alex, that's all the time we have. I appreciate you coming on. We're going to need to get you back on the Gray Report here sooner rather than later. I'd like to be a semi-frequent occurrence. Doesn't want it to go a couple of years to go by until everyone gets graced with your presence once again. But understand, obviously, we've got a lot of stuff going on. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you? LinkedIn, email address, what's the best way?
Yeah, LinkedIn, or email me, alex@graycapitalllc.com.
All right. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and then leave a comment below what you thought about this, what you think about building a business, trying to integrate that with family, and just if you got something out of this, we'd love to hear that you did. If you're interested in kind of partnering with Alex and I, with Gray Capital on some of the latest acquisitions that we're working on, these awesome multifamily apartments in the Midwest, you can go on over to, just type in your browser, gray.fund, quick form to fill out. It'll send you over a doc. The opportunity is only open to accredited investors only, but if you're an accredited investor, I think it's a great opportunity. Alex and I would love to partner with you on it. So catch you next time on the next episode of The Gray Report. See you later.